Hey guys, so last night I did part one of the homeschool frequently asked questions that I run into on a very frequent basis for everybody that's jumping into the world of homeschool, whether it's because of the pandemic or just because life has taken you that route. So I answered about 8 questions yesterday, and I want to go ahead and answer a few more. I have many questions, so I want to kind of break them up into different videos so the videos are not just incredibly long and you can't really find the answer that you're looking for. So I'm going to dive right in. The first question that I'm going to do tonight is, what records do I need to keep? This question may be more on a state by state basis. I know for my local state, uh, the only thing that we need to keep records of, we need to make sure we have our lesson plans clearly set. We need to keep track of attendance. We need to keep track of however many hours we have, and we need to also have work, things that we can prove that the kids have been doing. Some things we need to have sample work, if you will, like a portfolio. That's what I'm looking for. And that's all we really need. And it's nothing that we need to turn in my particular state. It's just if somebody ever challenged you, whatever the case, if you ran into an issue, a legal issue, then you would have those records to be able to say, no, this is what I'm actually homeschooling. These are my records. But definitely get with the HSLDA to make sure that you're in accordance with your law, your state. They definitely help a lot with that. So let me move on to the next question. How do I avoid getting frustrated with my child? That one is huge. Not only in the homeschool aspects, but in just parenting in general. How to avoid getting frustrated with my child. When it comes to teaching your child, you have to continuously learn your child. We often get frustrated because we're confused. So you may be confused, your child may be confused. You guys may be saying the same thing, your goal may be the same, but you're speaking one language and they're speaking a completely different language. So oftentimes you just need to take a step back and listen. And if you can't listen, just watch. There was a point in time in my homeschool journey where I just stopped teaching completely. We didn't wake up and we had lessons. I literally just let them free fall. And I was just watching my children, because from before that, they were in school and they were, for the bulk of their day, they were at school. They're typically awake about 14 hours. People in general, on average, I guess, you're awake for about 14 hours. So for a kid to go to school for 7 of those hours, they spent a large portion of their waking day at school, so you didn't really have those hours to really get to know your kid. So when you're now faced with your child being with you all day long, and you're trying to teach them, it can get frustrating. If they have a different learning style than you do, that could be frustrating. So like I said, learning your child, spending time with them, just watch them, just let them be who they are, and you just watch them. Don't try to change them to be the star student, the perfect student. Just watch them and see who they are, and cater to that. Change your teaching and learning style based on that. And that's one of the things I was kind of lost my train of thought there. But there's a quiz on my Facebook group, where it just kind of talks about what kind of learner your child is. Are they an auditory learner? Are they a visual learner? Kind of things like that. So definitely look into that. See what kind of learning you have. And then there's lots of things online to give you different aids and ideas on how you can better teach your child, just depending on what their learning style is. But it's going to happen, and there's okay. Like I said in the last video, it's okay to take a step back and take a break and reevaluate. That doesn't mean you're frustrated with the lesson. We have to finish this lesson before 3 o'clock. That's not the case. If you're frustrated and you guys need to just wind down and depending on how old they are. When my kids were younger, we did a lot of dancing it out. What was the app called, or the website? It was, what's the website called? We used to dance. I know, mommy mode. Sweetheart, what's the website called? We used to dance for homeschool. We take a break. Go Noodle. There's a website called Go Noodle, and it's just lots of silly different dance activities. Just kind of get the kids' blood pumping, just get them moving. We'd all be up there just kind of dancing it out, just to wind down. If they're older, whatever, just separate, take a break, and let them know you're not mad at them. They're not doing anything wrong. They're not in trouble. You're human. They're human. Communicate with your child. Just because you're the parent and they're the child doesn't mean that you're up here and they're down here. Especially when you're learning. Sometimes you're right there. You're learning together. Communicate with your child. Let them communicate their frustrations to you. Don't let it be a closed door in between the two of you, or your family in general. I spent a lot of time on that question. I'm very passionate about that. The next question that is on my list is, what is a homeschool co-op? And for all the other homeschool families out here that may see this video, please feel free to chime in if there's something that I missed. If you have a little bit more to add to what I'm saying, please feel free to do so. But a homeschool co-op, a cooperative, if you will, it's a group of homeschool families that kind of get together, and they come up with activities, come up with lessons, or whatever the case for the children, so that they are able to socialize, so that they are able to learn with a set group of children, and just kind of build that relationship with them, and you with the parents. So a lot of times we'll do field trips in a co-op. A lot of times, maybe one parent is really good at sign language, and they'll teach the children sign language. Another parent may be good at art, or playing the piano, or science, or whatever the case. You guys can just come together and coordinate and just teach the children together. And it's so much that you can do in a co-op, and you don't have to be in one co-op. You can be in, that's the beauty about homeschooling. You don't have to be set to one district, to one school. You can have a co-op in your city and be a part of a co-op 3 cities over, or whatever the case. Just kind of give your kids a little bit more option, and expose them to a lot more. So the next one, anyhow, how do I keep track of hours? There's so many different ways you can do that. Typically on a regular day, I would homeschool for about 3 hours. Now when I say homeschool for about 3 hours, I mean the common, or the it's late core subjects, science, social studies, math, language arts, reading. That sitting down with instruction is about 3 hours, and it doesn't have to be 3 hours all in one stretch or anything like that. But it's about 3 hours of work in a day, and I kept tracking about 30-minute increments. And there are websites that you can use. You can just kind of jot down what time you started a particular subject, what time you stopped. It just kind of depends on what you want. Some people, like I was saying, some people prefer to work online, have an Excel spreadsheet, have a Word document, have a template that they download, and they can just use that. There's some software, some websites that you can use to help you track your hours. One thing I will say that I've had experience with, because when I first started homeschool, I had this very, very detailed schedule, this plan. And I mean, it was down to like the 30-minute increments. 8 o'clock in the morning, we wake up. 8:30, we eat breakfast. 9 o'clock, we do this. 9:30, we do this. 11 o'clock, we start math. 11:15, we do this. It was just, and then I found that it was impossible to really adhere to this schedule, because maybe when we were doing reading, we read a book about a tornado, and then one of my children had a question about, Tornado Valley, whatever the states, just, a different question, and then we just kind of ventured off, and then I'm like, okay, but we have to finish the conversation, because in 10 minutes we have to move on to math, or whatever the case, so it was really hard to adhere to the schedule. So many things happen, especially in the midst of family life. So many things happen over the course of the day. So blocking your day like that will drive you nuts. So now, like when I homeschool, and I may be venturing off with the question here, but now when I do make a schedule, I just kind of write the order of things I want to go in. So first, I want to do math because they're sharpest in the morning. So I want to work with the numbers in the morning, and then after math, we may do language arts, reading, a little bit of handwriting or whatever, and then science, social studies, just kind of. I know the order of things I want to go in, but I'm not saying by 10:30 we have to do this, by 1 o'clock we have to be eating lunch, because that would drive you nuts trying to stick to that schedule. But as far as keeping track of the hours, it just depends on what you want. It also depends on your state. Like my particular state, we have to make sure over the course of an entire year, from I want to say July to June of the next year, you have that entire block of time to get 1,000 hours, which is why I said I do about 3 hours of actual instruction. It's learning all day, cooking, cleaning your room, going grocery shopping, all the things, those life skills. That's learning. There's learning in that. So just set instruction is about 3 hours. If you did that over the course of a year, you will be well over your 1,000 hours. But it depends on your state, But as far as just for records, and I know I'm all over the place with this question, forgive me, but there's a lot that goes into hours and things like that. It just kind of depends on what you want. There's so many different ways you can do that. You always want to make sure you're in accordance with your law, and I'm going to say that a lot, or with your state. I'm going to say that a lot because I want to make it clear that every state has different laws, and you just don't want to deal with the issues of not adhering to them by getting a misrepresentation by some lady on YouTube or Facebook. So try different things. I used to have an account on a website where I was keeping track of my hours, and then I learned, sometimes I'm driving, sometimes we're going to the library, sometimes we're not even in the house at all, and then I have to jot it down in a notebook and then go back later at the end of the day, and it was just too much. I had in a little composition notebook, and it works. Just find your way. So try different things. If it doesn't work, change it up. The next question, and I've answered, I don't know, just a few questions. I'm already at almost 13 minutes. I can talk. But the next question is, where can I find curriculum that's not religious? You have, especially with homeschool, a lot of people homeschool because they still want the aspect of religion incorporated in their homeschool. But a lot of people don't want a lot of their homeschool curriculum to have religion incorporated, either because they're religious or they're not religious, or just because they want to keep their learning separate. Whatever the case, you're looking for secular homeschool curriculum, and there's many secular homeschool curriculum options, just as there are many religious homeschool options or curriculum options. And it just takes a simple Google search. If you found a curriculum that you are interested in, you can ask, is curriculum XYZ religious based, or is it secular, or a list of secular based homeschool curriculums or whatever. Just get on Google. It's not difficult at all. And then in this group, I'm gonna have a list of a lot of the homeschool curriculums that I've come across, religious and secular. Just kind of, hopefully people can chime in on what they've had experiences with, and just kind of give reviews on those particular curriculums. But it's just a simple Google search. There's so many different curriculums out there to choose from. I'm going to answer one more question on this video because I rambled on, and I don't want to make this too long. The last question, how do I balance work and school? That's a huge one. Especially now with everything going on, so many people are afraid of getting the hours. When you think about school, you think from 8 to 3, 8 to 4, or whatever the hours in your local school is. And then you're also thinking about work. Whether you work outside of the home or you're working in the home now, how am I going to do homeschool if I have to go to work? The thing is, and like I was saying earlier, for me, we were homeschooling for 3 hours a day, just set instruction for 3 hours a day. But even if we did 6 hours a day, it's not like you have to wake up and say, okay, from 8 to 2, from 8 to whatever, 8 to whatever your hours, we have to be sitting at this table, we have to be working. That doesn't have to be the case at all. You have the freedom, you have the luxury, you have the ability to break it up however you need to. If you need to do math in the morning over breakfast, do math in the morning over breakfast. And then by the time lunch comes, you might be doing a science project with, I don't know, creating something, just whatever the case. And then, later in the evening, you guys can do your reading, whatever. You can break it up however you need to. Just make sure you're keeping those records, so you can balance it however it works for you. If you need to change it, that's a huge benefit of homeschooling. You can change it if you need to. But don't stress yourself out. A lot of things a child can do on their own, especially once you are getting up a little bit in age, second, third graders and up. There's some things that they can do on their own, where you can kind of have a moment to them, to yourself to work, especially if you're working in the home. There are things that you can just kind of do, ways that you can just kind of manipulate the day. Give them the workbook, maybe give them the instruction and then give them the workbook and say, okay, work through problems 1 through 10. Just work through the problems that that you don't have a problem with. If this problem stresses you out, just skip it and go to the next one. And then when I go on break, when I get a moment, we'll come through and work this problem together, or whatever the case. If you're working outside the home, it's not like you have to homeschool during the day. You're like, okay, I work first shift, so how am I supposed to homeschool if school hours are the first shift hours? That's not the case at all. If you are working during the day outside the home and you have somebody that's kind of holding on to your kids, you can have them incorporate the lesson that you gave them, or whatever the case, or homeschool at night, homeschool in the evening. Just make it work for your family. Sometimes kids, their mind is just completely gone by the end of the day. You're not going to get anything out of them, but just make it work for your family. It doesn't have to be any set way. I'm going to leave it here. We're 17 and a half minutes into this video. I don't feel like I answered too many questions in this video, which I would like to get through more. If I'm talking too much, let me know. I can bring it down a little bit. But I definitely want to get through as many questions as I can for you guys. And if you have more, please feel free to ask them. Again, I will be going live probably next week or something. And just to kind of answer as many questions as I can live. So check that out. Again, if you haven't joined the Facebook group, please feel free to do so. It's homeschool-getting started during COVID. And I'll link that below somewhere. So, yeah, I think that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't. I'll definitely be posting a lot more. I know this is my mommy channel, but it's all incorporated. The learning, the momming, it's all kind of incorporated. So I'll definitely be adding more about homeschool as time goes on. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video and listened to me ramble for 18, almost 19 minutes, thank you. I'm going to end it here, and I will see you guys next video.